NFR Extra is a weekly podcast that focuses on the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo and features icons that embody the rodeo and Western lifestyle.
It felt so true to me that if you tried hard and worked harder at it and tried with everything you had, that's where your edge would come from. I think the thing that people forget about bulls sometimes is they kill you without trying to. You know, they don't have to be mean. They're just simply, when an animal weighs 2,000 pounds, they can turn around and smash you like a bug. Most sports have the pressure of winning and losing, or championships, or you know, being in front of on the biggest stage, or whatever those things are. But where this sport is quite a bit different is it has the pressure of living and dying every single time.
Hey everybody, this is Steve Goddard, and you're listening to the NFR Extra.
It's an honor today to be joined by Ty Murray. And Ty, just tell us a little bit about what's going on today. We'll take a walk down memory lane, but tell us what you're doing today.
What I'm doing today?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take the kids out and cut down a Christmas tree. It's kind of our annual tradition. The day after Thanksgiving, we go get the Christmas tree, and the kids are in there bouncing off the walls, waiting to go get that.
So you don't do like the Griswold thing, right? You don't strap it to the roof of your car or anything like that, right?
No, we take a four-wheeler out on the ranch. When the kids get a little bit older, we'll go horseback. But while they're little, we go out with a four-wheeler and a little trailer and cut down a Texas cedar tree. And we try to find the one that's the most shaped like a Christmas tree and go from there.
That's awesome. Creating memories.
Yeah. When you talk about somebody that has the title of King of the Cowboy, you wouldn't expect much less of that.
Where at in Texas are you now?
I have a ranch in Stephenville, Texas. I've been here now about 27. I've been in Stephenville about 30 years, and I've been here at the ranch about 27.
Now, when you say ranch, for those that don't know, are you running cattle on it? What is your...
Right. Yeah, I run about 250 head of Angus mother cows. And I breed them to Charolais bulls, and then once a year we sell the calf crop. Try to keep the cows as long as they can produce, and try to take really good care of the cows so that they're able to have a calf every year.
Do you have the availability to keep them on grass year round, or do you have to supplement them with some feed throwing out the hay?
Yeah, we put out some hay. We also put out some range cubes. This year has been an especially drouthy year, so it was a brutal year. Where last year was amazing and this year was terrible, but that's how it goes, I guess. You know, when you're talking about the ranching business, and you just got to try to take as good a care of your grass as you can. I think that's kind of the number one job of a rancher, is to be a good steward to the land and try to, not overgraze your grass to where every year you have a good stand of grass, because that's kind of what makes the whole thing go around with cattle.
Well, when you talk about your ranching and your ag background, Ty, I mean, we understand that this didn't begin with you. You come from a ranching family. So kind of take us back to the beginning of how you got involved, not only in agriculture, but the start of your rodeo career as well.
Right. So, I'm a multi-generational cowboy. I've got photographs of my great grandpa and my great uncles putting on Wild West shows back in the early 1900s. They worked for a pretty famous ranch at the time called the 101 Ranch. It was in northern Oklahoma, and it was owned by three brothers. They were named the Miller Brothers, and they would take Wild West shows all over the world, actually. And I got pictures of my great grandpa and my great uncles working cows with Bill Pickett on that ranch, and he was also part of the Wild West shows. And So really, you know, I was kind of born into this life, and really it's all I've ever known, like looking at my rodeo career, there wasn't a day that I was like, hey, I want to be a cowboy, or I want to be a rodeo cowboy, or this is what I want to do. Like, it's kind of just all I remember. It's like walking. It's like you don't remember the day you learned to walk, or, you just remember always doing it and always being able to do it. And so that's kind of how this has been for me. It's just, I was, born into it on both sides. My mom's side and my dad's side was full of cowboys. So that's all I've ever done. It's all I've ever known. And luckily, it's something that I've loved ever since I was a little kid. And I feel so fortunate to have been able to make a good living my whole life, basically just doing what I love to do. And the thing that, excites me the most and has driven me the most, I feel it really seems like not a day goes by that I don't feel grateful for that.
That's awesome that you get to carry that tradition on now for the next generation, for your kids, and at least having the availability for them to grow up on that, whether they decide to compete in rodeo or carry on the ranching tradition. That's very unique nowadays, because it seems like the gap between production agriculture, the Western way of life, whatever that is, it's just getting to be farther and farther separated from the majority of the world. So, but yeah, that's something else.
Yeah. With my kids, they're here at the ranch, and they take part in kind of everything we do here at the ranch. And, I want to let them learn the skills that I know about, but I also want to expose my kids to a lot of different things and a lot of different ways of life, and kind of let them find where they fit into the world. It's, I'm probably not one of those dads that's like, I'm a cowboy, your grandpa was a cowboy, and you're going to be a cowboy. That's right. That's not really my thing. Is, I try to help them align with what sets them on fire, or what they're passionate about. And
sure.
My little girl's 4 and my boy is 11. But we'll try to let them see a lot of different things in this life, and then try to help them, kind of follow their path.
Those are really fun ages. What are they into, Ty?
My 4-year-old daughter's into everything, and she's a fireball, and she'll see a guy on TV, like we'll just be, in the house or something, and a guy will be on TV jumping a motorcycle, 200 feet, and she'll go, well, I want to do that.
Oh, goodness.
And then my son is 11, and he's, he was born a kid that always listened. He's just kind of been an easy kid. He's real sensitive, and he's very musical. And, it's so funny how they're just polar opposite, because he's never done anything wrong. And if I even say Case, he tears up, and, he doesn't want to be in trouble. And he's just he's real smart and loves to learn, loves school. And then little Miss, on the other hand, is probably a little bit more like me, and she's got a full-time job. And every time you look up, we call her Sweetie Knievel, because every time you look up, she's doing something death-defying. So
that's the horrible thing. Andy and I both have daughters, and that's the thing. When they look like mom and act like dad, it's like, I knew this was going to come back and get me sometime.
Right? Yeah, that's her. She's pretty much pedal to the metal all day, every day. Yeah. Case, it's funny how you have to adjust your parenting style. Like when Case was little, if he grabbed a lamp cord, and I said, I'm talking about when he was real little, like
right.
1, and I'd say, Case, don't pull on that. That lamp will fall and hit you on the head. Well, he just wouldn't pull on it. He'd just walk away. Little Miss, I don't tell her not to pull on the lamp cord. I just guarantee that she does. So,
yeah. Let's see how hard it's going to fall. I mean, that's
Let me see
the other side. Well, that's one thing that's very interesting about the ranching way of life is that the one thing that, especially nowadays, because it seems that we're in such a different time, but to grow up in an agriculture environment is the hard work, the responsibility, things that the rest of the world seems to be forgetting about. I mean, with your kids that have that opportunity, like you said, whatever their passion is, they can apply that hard work, that sense of responsibility, and the world is theirs. I mean, that's the really, really, I think, unique thing about production agriculture and the ranching way of life.
Well, that's true, and we really try to not take that for granted. It's so nice having their animals and their chores and, their responsibilities. They learn a lot on the ranch. They learn a lot about giving life, and they learn a lot about life going away too. And so, with just all the animals and the wildlife and really, like they've got chickens and guineas and peacocks and turkeys and hamster, a rat, a rabbit, 2 ponies. I mean, got 3 dogs, 4 cats. They've got a little zoo here, actually. But it's, it's great. And it teaches them a lot about, animals and the responsibility that goes with animals and how you kind of have to think about them before you think about yourself and that sort of thing.
So speaking of a little bit on animals, with the advances that have been made in today's livestock and these breeding programs, do you think there's any way that someone could do what you did today, Ty? I mean, with the level of competition and the level of livestock that you're going to see at this year's NFR and any PRCA, PBR event anywhere, do you think you could work 3 events today successfully?
I think that I could. We're watching Stetson Wright work 2 events very successfully. And we just see him getting better. And
Right.
And really, the thing that I think some people don't understand is whenever you get on great stock, that's when everything's at its best. Like whenever you're getting on animals that kind of clatter and bang down through there, those are the things that make you sore. Those are the things that the sense of timing is pretty ill. And, riding rough stock is kind of all about timing.
Sure.
So when you're getting on those kind of animals that are just kind of, out of line and clatter and bang and their timing's off, those are the things that you don't get that much better, and it's harder on your body and it makes you sore. So whenever you're able to get on better stock, it's almost like thinking about if you're a race car driver and, if you're in a really good car every day, that's going to get you better. But if you're in a station wagon one day and a, Ford Fiat the next, and then a race car, the day after that, it's going to be a lot harder to get better and maintain a groove and understand a groove and be able to find that groove when you're exposed to a lot of different kinds of stock. So, that was something that was so important to us in the PBR was we knew that the bulls had to be top notch, the very best. And that's something that I see as for me, like when I'd go the NFR, that's when I felt the best of all year because I got to get on 30 head that was all great. And so, that's kind of my take on it.
I got to dork out, man, because I'm trying to keep my calm, but I grew up a Ty Murray fan. I had the poster on the wall and everything like that. And, as soon as you got the books coming out, reading the books, and you talk about 30 head in 10 days. And now, and that's without rerides. That's just 30 head if everything else goes good. But the most impressive part about all of that is you look at guys that are one event and you hear the television commentators or whoever is there, hey, we're halfway through the NFR and, you're starting to see the aches and the pains for these guys. And they're one event cowboys with the exception of Stetson Wright. How did you maintain the physical and mental ability to carry that on for as long as you did?
Well, really, I think your mind and body can get used to anything. And, you look at people that run marathons or triathlons, Ironmans, those sort of things that seem impossible to most of us. whenever you train for that and you work your way up and, you keep getting stronger and faster and mentally more prepared for it, then the next thing you know, that just becomes what you do. And it doesn't seem like it's kind of funny. I remember when I was like 20 and, people would be making a big deal about it. And it seemed funny to me because growing up, I did every event. So by the time I was a professional, I was only doing 3. Hell, it was almost like a day off, sort of. My body and mind became conditioned to that's what I do. So, like talking about guys getting sore, I used to get sore I would be maybe a little sore on night 2. And then I would be more sore on night 3. And then by night 4, I was feeling pretty good. And then by night 5, I was ready to rock and roll. I didn't care if we had 50 more performances. And so, because your body, it's kind of like going to the gym. You know how when you first go to the gym and bust it and the next day you can barely walk. And then each day it may hurt the next day, but then by the next day it starts easing up. And then pretty soon you just can't even get sore. And so that's kind of what it was like.
So did you have a workout regimen back then? I mean, were there many guys, because now we have gym rats. I mean, we have guys that are trying to teach others how to train, but were there a lot of guys doing preps and workouts at that time?
Probably not near as many back then, but it was always very important to me my whole life. Even when I was going to junior rodeos, I was probably about 8 or 9 years old when the movie Rocky came out. And that movie had a profound impact on me. And it felt so true to me that if you tried hard and worked harder at it and tried with everything you had, that's where your edge would come from. And so that movie inspired me at 7 or 8 years old, whatever I was. And I can remember being 8 years old and putting on my gray sweatsuit with my hood on and going out and, really, I mean, I thought that was the greatest thing. And it really kind of inspired me my whole life and my whole career. And, in the rough stock events, confidence, well, really any sport, really kind of any endeavor, you're going to be at your best when your confidence is high. And so when you're talking about a sport that you're always the underdog and it's very dangerous, like other level dangerous, being able to find confidence is paramount, I think. And so being able to train and be physically where you had all that confidence in your strength and your quickness and your flexibility, that was just a way to gain more confidence on top of all the benefits you got physically. So the physical component to that was very important, but to me, it was almost secondary to the mental confidence that I would get from when I was practiced, trained, and ready to go. I felt like I was unstoppable.
Yeah, that mental deal. You listen to guys nowadays, and there's so much more access to the mental edge, the conditioning your mind, all of that than 10, 15, 20 years ago. But like the thing that you hear everybody say now is your body will quit 1,000 times, or your mind will quit 1,000 times before your body actually fails. And so that just continually building on that mental edge, especially like you said, you're the underdog. I mean, this is the horse or the bull. They have zero desire what's going on in your personal life. And that's all up to you to sit in that, 3x8 steel box before you nod your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's for sure. And for me, I think that I really understood the danger of the game. It wasn't like, I feel like I know the danger of the game better than anybody knows it. And like when you meet people, John Q. Public from New York or something that says, man, that's really dangerous. You're crazy. That's really dangerous. Well, I know how dangerous it is way better than he knows how dangerous it is. And that's what this sport is. Like when you look at bull riding and even riding bucking horses, the danger is kind of what it is. It's the reason that it's hard to do. It's probably one of the biggest reasons of why it's hard to do, because every athletic endeavor that you do requires a handful of basic things that you have to do. And so I always just tried to keep my focus on those basic things. I never tried to get fancy or try to, I was never trying to really go beyond that very much. There's times that you would have you'd have an animal that was pretty easy to ride for you, and you might kind of dress it up and make it look maybe a little more difficult than what it actually is. But beyond that, it's basically trying to stick to the fundamentals, basics of what it is that you need to do. So most sports have the pressure of winning and losing, or championships, or being in front of on the biggest stage, or whatever those things are. But where this sport is quite a bit different is it has the pressure of living and dying every single time. And so, the bulls, they don't know if you're going for the world championship or at a $5 jackpot. It's all the same to them. And so I tried to make it where it was all the same to me too, and that was something that, in honesty, I think people are shocked sometimes when I tell them that I had a level of fear every single time I did it. And I probably got on about 6,000 head in my lifetime. And there wasn't a time that I was like, this is just a walk in the park. I mean, I would have the confidence. I would believe in myself. I felt very confident that I could do it. But you always know that serious element of danger is there every time. And where it's different from other dangerous sports is if you look at like race car driving or downhill speed skiing or those sort of things, those are dangerous, but the person is still the one deciding what level it goes to. Mm. And so where it's really different in, like, say, bull riding or bronc riding, is the animal decides what level it's going to go to. And you've got to be in a place mentally that you say, whatever level it goes to, that's where I'm going. And so, that takes quite a bit of practice and experience to become good at that kind of a commitment, because I think that riding rough stock can be counterintuitive, kind of like life is sometimes. I think that in life and in riding bucking horses and bulls, what it seems like you need to do is the opposite of what you really need to do. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
And so, being able to train your mind to go for it the hardest when every fiber of you is saying safety up and play it safe. It's almost like you have to rewire your brain to be able to do that, because trust me, there's times every fiber of your soul is saying, save your life. And the funny thing is, when you do what you feel like would help you get safetied up and save you, that's actually probably going to be what hurts you. And so, I understood that in the game, and I understood the danger. So it wasn't a coincidence or an accident that I didn't have a wife and children until after my career, because I knew that I couldn't go to work every day and do the world's most dangerous job and have a wife and kid or kids, needing me or relying on me at home. I knew that would severely affect my ability to compete at the highest level.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's like like you said, the natural intuition of save your life. I mean, most people would be behind the buck and shoes, like, just take my saddle off or rope off. Like, I shouldn't even be here.
Yeah.
So, and that's
it's
like,
funny, it's hard to explain. And really, I've been trying to explain it my whole life, and I probably haven't figured it out yet. But, it's hard to explain to people why you would be so drawn to something that can kill you pretty easily. A bull I think the thing that people forget about bulls sometimes is they kill you without trying to. They don't have to be mean. They're just simply, when an animal weighs 2,000 pounds, they can turn around and smash you like a bug.
Yep.
So the danger's there always, whether it doesn't have to be a mean bull. And, it's hard to explain to somebody why you would do that. I know it's hard for me now at 52 with a wife and kids. It's hard for me. I can't imagine doing it again. You couldn't melt and pour me into a bucket of shoes. You know what I'm saying? At this stage of my life, even if I was physically still the way I was when I was 25, I just have a different look at the world now, and what's important to me is different now. But, like when I was in my 20s, there was nothing more important than going after the benchmark that I'd set for myself in my career and trying to break Larry Mahan's record and trying to be an exceptional rider in all three events. I thought that was the only thing that existed in the world. So now it's, not discounting it, but now it's not near as important to me as it was then.
Every year, rodeo fans make their way to Las Vegas to immerse themselves in the Western lifestyle. For many, their NFR experience includes a trip or two to the Cowboy Channel Cowboy Christmas in search of more. More time with friends, more fashion, more entertainment, more choices, more autograph sessions, and more Vegas. The Cowboy Channel Cowboy Christmas, December 1st through 10th at the Las Vegas Convention Center, South Halls. Open daily from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's all here.
So on that topic, how did you know when to give it up? Like, when did you stop going to rodeos when that transitional of mental, it sounds like, happened?
Yeah. So that transformation probably didn't happen at the time that I retired. What happened at the time that I retired is really I had reached the benchmarks that I'd set for myself. And really I kind of went beyond really what the benchmarks that I'd set for myself were. And I lost my drive when I'd gotten to that point in my career. I'll never forget the last bull I got on was in Billings, Montana, and I had my hand in the rope, and my hand was kind of bunged up at the time, and I had my hand in the rope and they were pulling my rope, and it felt like my hand was just breaking, and it was cold. And I remember as I was taking my rap, I remember thinking, what am I doing? It's like, why am I still out here? Like, why am I still out here? I don't have anything to prove to myself. I don't have anything to prove to anybody. And when that drive, the biggest advice that I probably handed out my whole career was that you've got to love this. Like if you're doing it because your girlfriend thinks it's cool, or your buddies are doing it, or your dad wished he would have, those aren't adequate reasons to do it, because it's too dangerous, and that's what made me gun shy about doing clinics in schools, is because when I would have kids show up that wanted to ride bulls that couldn't do a pull-up, I'm like, look, I'm not going to babysit your kid out here in something that's this dangerous. It's got to be burning in you, I think. If you're going to take on something like this that can just really hurt you, maim you, kill you, paralyze you. I mean, I'm just stating the cold hard facts and what I've seen happen to a lot of my friends. It's got to be something that just burns in you. And it burned in me, from childhood till I was 32, it burned in me every day. I thought about it every day without trying to. And I think that's a really important element to do this at the highest level. If you're going to try to be really good, if you're going to try to make the NFR, if you're going to try to be a world champion, this ain't a hobby, and really none of the events are, because they require so much work. If you look at the team ropers and calf ropers and bulldoggers, they practice all day, every day, if they're not at a rodeo. And so without that burning love, I always tell people that love is the only thing that all champions have in common. You're going to look at, if you take 10 champions, you're going to see 10 different styles, 10 different ways of going at it, 10 different mental preparations that they have, kind of really every element of their game. You're going to see differences in the 10 guys. But the one thing that all of them are going to have that I see if they're champions is they're going to have a burning love for what they do in the sport. And so when I got to that point where I was saying to myself, what am I still doing out here? That's when I knew that had passed for me. And so I came back from that event and I called Randy Bernard, who was the CEO of the PBR at that time. And this was like in April. And I called Randy the next day and I was like, Randy, I'm going to retire. And he was like, no, what? No. We're going to have a farewell tour, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, we're not having a farewell. I'm telling you that I'm done right now. I'm done.
Let's have a death float. That sounds great.
This is not the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. And so, he really wanted to kind of make it like my farewell year. And I knew that when you're not there 100% heart and soul, the only thing that's out there for you is to get hurt. Yeah. And so I knew that I wasn't there 100% heart and soul anymore. It wasn't as important to me. I wasn't driven to reach those benchmarks for myself that I had always been driven towards. So at that point I said, no, I'm done. And it was also really important to me I wanted to go out where you went out right up there towards your best.
Sure.
And, I was sitting number 2. I had a 76% riding average. So, physically and really mentally, I could still do it. But without that drive, you just don't have the dedication that I think that you need to have.
Well, when I think of moments at the NFR and guys that I looked up to, I think there's no one better than you to be in this inaugural class of NFR icons. So I guess I say all that to ask the question, did you ever think when you made your first NFR and you had all these goals, did you ever think that you would achieve everything that you had set out for yourself?
Well, you don't know, and that's, I can remember as a kid growing up in Arizona, I would win the state championships and the state finals and, that sort of thing. And I can remember really wanting to get out of Arizona because I knew I could beat, I'd proven that I'd beat those kids. I wanted to go see if I could beat other kids around the country. And I really wanted to come to Texas. And so that's why when I got the scholarship offer to go to Odessa and replace Jim Sharp, that was I couldn't wait. And so, I don't think that but I will say the biggest thing that I think helped me to achieve winning 7 all-arounds and beating Larry Mahan's record, which was my goal since I was a little boy, was that was my plan and my benchmark. So I think sometimes really you see it in any sport, they start to see that they're pretty good. And then they might say, well, I want to see if I can win a world championship or whatever the goal might be. Mm-hmm. And so much work goes into it physically and mentally that you see guys win. And then you see, like the famous sophomore hangover that they talk about in all of sports. I never really had that sophomore hangover because I didn't want to, my goal was never to win one championship. My goal was to win 7. And so when I won my first all around, it felt like 1 down, 6 to go to me. I didn't have that moment of, whoo, I did it, and it's like all this pressure's lifted off you and you've poured everything you could into it that previous year. And then it's like you let down and you see guys struggle their second year to do it again. And I think that the reason that I didn't have that was because, like I was talking about earlier, my mind and body wasn't prepared to stop at that point. My mind and body was prepared that was the first leg of the marathon. And I knew I had to keep running. And so, the mental side of really all sports to me is the biggest component. And it's really the biggest component when you're talking about things that are like life and death, dangerous type things. I think that I think that's where it's won or lost, because anytime you get to the highest level of anything, everybody's good. Like when you look at the NFL, the worst player in the NFL is the greatest athlete you've ever personally known.
Yeah, no, that's true.
What's crazy. So at that point, everybody is pretty darn good. And it seems like the ones that are like, I always thought that Michael Jordan was at his best when it was the most important. Mm-hmm. And if you're that kind of a person with that kind of a personality, that is huge in sports, because pressure is not a real thing. Pressure is man-made, and it's inflicted upon yourself. There is no pressure other than what you're putting on yourself inside of your head. So whenever you see guys that are like Michael Jordan, that's what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. They're not looking to skirt that. They want to be in that position. And that's why it's so, that's why I felt like it was so important. I told a friend of mine that was talking to me about some advice the other day with competing. I heard a really cool quote the other day, and it said, the man who loves to walk is going to go further than the man that loves the destination. And I thought that was just such a powerful quote, because that's so true, and I think if, it's kind of like what I was saying about trying to win 7. I loved walking.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, that 7th all-around was an important destination for me, but I loved walking. And so I could just keep doing it. I could keep going.
Well, let me ask you this, Ty, and I've asked your contemporaries that are going to be in this inaugural class. You especially set the benchmark for attaining that high level of championship. You've had the title behind your name of champion, of multiple world champion, of legend. What does it mean to you to have your name associated now with Icon?
Well, it feels super, super special. And I'm not saying that as lip service. Like, oh, I'm so honored or I'm so humbled. This truly is something that feels really, really special. And I've went in a lot of Hall of Fames and stuff like that, but this feels different than that, because this is something that I've watched my whole life in other sports. And the guys that get retired to the rafters, they weren't world champions. They weren't even multiple world champions. They were generally guys that were some other level freak. And their Icon gets thrown around sometimes, but that's generally in sports. Those guys that you see get retired to the rafters, they were beyond really good, and they were in some other hemisphere. So to think that my peers and the people that vote on this and maybe the people that follow the sport, for them to think that I get to go in with 2 of my great friends in Trevor Brazil and Charmaine, it's super, super special. And sometimes I just wish that like my daughter, she's not really old enough to understand any of it yet. And I think that's my only regret, is sometimes I wish maybe she was a little bit older so that she could understand what it is that she was seeing. But I guess maybe she'll still know about it someday. That's the cool thing about being retired into the rafters. That's a forever thing. That doesn't change whenever you see that. It's kind of like put in stone. And so, that feels really, really good. And really, I even, sometimes feel a little bit, what would be the word? Not embarrassed, but, there's a part of me that feels like there's lots of people that could have went in before me. And I'm not saying lots like there, but I'm saying there's some guys that have done some amazing things and that paved the way for me. And that, like Larry Mahan was, like my whole childhood and probably really my whole adulthood too. For me, he was like better than Superman. I thought he was literally of God status, as a kid. So You know, you look at some of the really great champions that there's been, and you know, like when I think of Trevor and Charmaine, nobody's ever been better than them, and so that's really special.
Well, as long as you can keep your daughter away from those electrical cords, you should be able to tell her for years to come, you know, what this was all about. But I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, Ty. I mean, you have set a benchmark for what an icon is, and it's been awesome to watch your career, not only as a competitor, but the ambassador that you are for Western sports as a commentator and as a big part of the PBR. So on behalf of all of us, it's so awesome that you get to be a part of this, and we can't wait to see you in Vegas.
Well, thank you, man. I'm looking forward to coming. Me and my wife are going to come out, and I'm really excited to get out there and be able to watch Rocker Steiner. He's his dad and granddad are been friends of mine for a long, long time, and we started helping Rocker when he was 13, and now he's 18, and it's so fun to watch him be able to help someone and watch them become way better than you is pretty thrilling, you know. And I think this kid has the potential to set the place on fire, and I think he's a good kid. I know that nobody works at it harder than him. He works at it as harder than anybody I've ever seen, including me. Wow. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody work at it as hard as this kid. And that makes me a fan beyond that. I loved him I've known him ever since he was born. And I've always loved him. I've always thought he's a really good kid and a special kid. But when you see somebody put this kind of work into it and desire, that makes me a fan. You know, that makes me really interested. And really, I'm that way kind of across all the sports. When I see the guys that you can tell live it, breathe it, and bleed it, those are the guys that I like to watch. And it's fun for me to go there and watch Stetson Wright. You know, this guy's a super special guy. Yeah. And so, you know, people that are fans of the sport right now and are getting to watch what he does, you know, I hope that you realize what you're seeing is special freak status. You know, he keeps getting better, you know, and that even makes it more exciting. Mm-hmm. Because you're like, man, how good is this guy going to get? Because, you know, when I first saw him, I was like, yeah, this guy, he rides Broncs pretty good, and he rides Bulls, you know, pretty good. And then he just kept getting better and better and better. And he's just, you know, from what I see of him, he has all the components in every way. He's gutsy, he's tough. He never weakens. He's not afraid of anything. And he approaches the sport in the way that it's important to me. I guess that's the only way I'd know to say it. You know, like when I watch him have the guts and the try and the determination and the work ethic, and the scarier it gets, the worse it gets, the harder he goes for it. And you know, he's one of the guys that if he gets a re-ride, you can bet your ass he's going to take it. And that's something that's always felt so important to me. Not just for what it'll do for you in the competition, but just that mindset's important. You know, I always say a re-ride's like a mulligan. You know, if you were playing golf and somebody says, okay, you hit a bad shot, but I'm going to give you another try. Here's a ball. I'm going to give you another try for free.
Every time. The
people that say, nah, I'll just stick with that bad shot. That always makes me go, what? You know, like, do you want to be here? Is this what you do? Are you a professional? Like, is this, you know, I don't understand why you would hesitate at a free chance to do better. And Stetson doesn't do that. If they're going to give Stetson another one, he says, let's bring it on, because I know I can get better. Yeah. And that's important, you know, like, so I haven't been able to see a part of his game that I couldn't say is top notch. I feel like every aspect of the way he approaches it is top notch, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan. Those kind of guys inspire me to this day. When I see those are the kind of guys like the running backs that don't step out of bounds. They want that extra inch, and they're gonna put their head down and take the punishment to get that extra inch. Those are the kind of things that really make me a fan.
Well, Ty, you've sure been an inspiration to that next generation. So thank you so much for joining us and your time here today, and we look forward to seeing you in Vegas. Absolutely, guys. I appreciate visiting with you, and I'll see you out there.
Yes, sir. Happy Christmas tree hunting.
All right.
Want to experience more of the NFR? Then visit NFRexperience.com, and we invite you to subscribe to NFR Extra on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you're listening right now. If you like what you've heard on NFR Extra, we would love it if you gave us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe.